28 years. That's how long Ethan Cole had given to Nexera Systems. He was there before the logo changed colors. Before cloud computing. Before the interns he trained became managers, and the managers became ghosts of his past. He had designed their network backbone with his own hands, line by line. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Just like him. The Monday it happened, the sky was the same color as the building, flat and gray. Ethan's keycard blinked red at the front gate. Just a flicker, then nothing. The young security guard, barely out of college, shifted awkwardly on his feet. System glitch, sir. You can go through. IT's been weird lately. Ethan nodded slowly, stepping inside. But something in his gut twisted. Systems don't glitch. They fail for a reason. Or someone tells them to fail. By noon, his email access was revoked. By 2, his name vanished from the internal directory. And by 5, HR sent him a pre-written termination letter, signed not by a human hand, but by the same system he had once built to automate contracts. No warning. No explanation. The email read like a weather report: due to departmental restructuring, your position has been eliminated effective immediately. He didn't pack up his office that day. There was no office anymore. A junior associate had already been assigned his desk. He drove home in silence, the kind that thudded louder than any car radio. His daughter, Nina, called that evening. She was finishing her second year of grad school in Michigan. He didn't tell her. Not yet. She had enough on her plate. Instead, he opened the closet in the hallway, where he kept a weathered black box labeled archive. Old hard drives. Flash keys. Backup disks. Most of it was dust. But one drive, thin, silver, barely marked, still worked. Inside were fragments, emails flagged and saved. Access logs from internal servers. Performance evaluations, some glowing, some strangely rewritten. Notes he'd made over the years, suspicions he hadn't voiced. He didn't have a plan. Just a question: why now? At 60, Ethan wasn't naive. Age had crept into every performance review in invisible ink. Legacy knowledge was a polite way of saying outdated. The new CTO, Tanner Blake, had once referred to him as the human appendix, important once, but not essential now. But this felt different. Not just ageism. Erasure. Like he had never been there at all. That night, he stood in the kitchen, staring at a sticky note on the fridge that Nina had written years ago when she was 11, "Don't forget, you're my favorite superhero." He pressed his thumb against the note like it could hold him up. He was angry. But more than that, he was hollow. Like a man buried beneath the very system he helped create. And maybe, he thought, the only way to be seen again was to stop being silent. Not loud. Not reckless. Just undeniable. He powered up his personal server for the first time in months. The fan whirred to life like a long-lost friend clearing its throat. A blinking cursor appeared on the screen. He stared at it for a long while. Then began typing. The morning after he was fired, Ethan sat at his kitchen table with the blinds half-drawn and a mug of cold coffee untouched in front of him. He wasn't thinking about his severance package. He wasn't thinking about polishing a resume or checking job boards. He was thinking about a folder. The one labeled temp_backlogs_2018, buried deep in the old legacy server Nexera never bothered to decommission. The folder had once been part of a migration project he led, but something about it had always felt off. It was supposed to be a graveyard of unused backups. But it had a heartbeat. He remembered the moment it first caught his eye, months ago. The audit logs weren't just records of system maintenance. There were pings to external servers at odd hours. IPs that didn't belong. Files tagged with nonsensical names, but the file sizes were too big, too consistent. Ethan had flagged it, brought it up in a meeting. The room had gone quiet. His manager had changed the subject. Afterward, a senior VP sent him an email that simply said, "Let it go. Focus forward." So, he let it go. Until now. With access gone, Ethan knew he had one chance. The night before the keycard turned red, he'd run a final sync from his personal sandbox, a quiet habit of backing up non-sensitive code to study and refactor. But this time, he had accidentally pulled more than code. Log trails. A few raw packets. Enough breadcrumbs to retrace his steps. He booted up an old laptop. Not the company-issued one they made him hand over. This one was his. Still dusty from a closet shelf, but patched, protected, and untraceable. He dug in. Hours passed. The house was silent except for the occasional creak of the floorboards and the hum of the processor. Ethan's fingers moved with a rhythm he hadn't felt in years. Calm. Controlled. Purposeful. The deeper he dug, the more it made sense. Nexera was funneling data. User analytics, metadata trails, geolocation clusters, rerouted through proxy endpoints in jurisdictions with little regulatory oversight. It wasn't just sloppy security. It was deliberate. And profitable. Ethan leaned back in his chair, heart pounding. Not from fear. From recognition. This was a choice. He could close the laptop. Walk away. Retire, maybe. Let the severance buy him a few quiet years. Maybe take up woodworking like he always said he would. Or he could do what no system had been built to do for him. Tell the truth. He copied everything to an encrypted flash drive and tucked it in a drawer under old tax returns. That night, he didn't sleep. Not because he was afraid. Because he knew there was no going back. The next morning, he sent a message. Ms. Menon, I read your exposé last year on biocryptic labs. You were right about them. I have something you might want to see. No names yet. Just facts. If you're still interested in the truth, we should talk. He stared at the screen for a long minute before hitting send. 3 hours later, the reply came. You've got my attention. Meet? Ethan smiled. Not a grin. Just the faint curve of someone who had stopped asking for permission. Yes. Now they could begin. Priya Menon met Ethan in a nondescript coffee shop near the old shipping yard, a place neither of them had probably visited in years. She wore no makeup, carried no laptop, only a notebook and pen. Ethan brought the flash drive, wrapped in a receipt from the hardware store, like it was something he could explain with taxes. He slid it across the table. She didn't reach for it immediately. She looked at him first. You know what you're doing? She asked. Ethan stirred his coffee. I know what I can't keep ignoring. She nodded, as if that answer was enough. For 2 hours, they talked. He explained the pattern, the logs, the proxies routed through overseas data centers. Priya listened without interrupting. She scribbled shorthand notes in the margins of her legal pad. At one point, she asked, Why now? Ethan hesitated. Then he pulled out his wallet and laid a photo on the table. A young woman in a cap and gown, arms wrapped around a man with graying hair and a proud, tired smile. My daughter, he said. Graduated with a degree in data ethics. I helped her move into her dorm 4 years ago. Told her the world would be better because people like her were watching. She believed me. I want to be the kind of man that doesn't make that a lie. Priya didn't speak. But her eyes softened. They parted ways with no promises. She said she needed time to verify. He said he understood. Over the next 2 weeks, the silence was louder than any alarm. Ethan returned to routine like a ghost living inside an old habit. He cleaned the gutters. He fixed the loose kitchen tile. He walked his neighbor's dog when she was out of town. But always, the phone sat on the edge of the table, its screen dark. Then it came. A call. One ring. And the world tilted. Priya's article dropped at midnight. The headline was clinical, precise, whistle in the code, how Nexera manipulated global data streams while firing its own watchdog. It didn't name Ethan outright. But anyone in the company would know. The article exposed the backdoor funnels, the manipulated logs, the redirected metadata, and, most damning of all, the internal memo Ethan had flagged months ago, which had been quietly archived and ignored. By sunrise, Nexera's internal Slack had gone nuclear. Screenshots leaked. Investors pulled back. The company's legal team issued a sterile denial, but public trust eroded like wet paper. By the end of the week, the CTO resigned. A month later, a congressional subcommittee requested full documentation. Ethan's documentation. He didn't speak to reporters. Didn't post on social media. When asked for comment by a tech news outlet, all he said was, "I built systems to protect people. When the system turns on them, someone has to pull the plug." But not everyone was silent. At a local bookstore, a woman approached him. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, wearing a conference badge from a tech ethics summit. "You're the one, right?" she said. Ethan glanced up from the shelf. "I'm someone," he replied. She smiled. "You gave us proof. Some of us needed that. It made me stay." Ethan didn't need to ask what she meant. He just nodded. In the months that followed, he started teaching part-time at a community college. Intro to Network Security. Ethics in Tech. His students were younger, faster, but they listened. Because he didn't teach from theory. He taught from scar tissue. He never became famous. But his story echoed. In forums. In classrooms. In boardrooms where someone now always asked, "Who's auditing the audit?" Ethan knew he had pulled one brick from a much larger wall. But sometimes, that's all it takes to show where the cracks are. And as for Nexera? They rebranded. Changed the logo. Launched an apology campaign. Claimed a renewed commitment to transparency. But Ethan didn't need an apology. He didn't want an apology. He wanted the truth to live somewhere it couldn't be deleted. And now it did. It was quiet again in Ethan's life. But not the kind of silence that haunted him during those first days after his termination. This was a different kind of quiet, a peaceful hum that came with purpose rediscovered. Every Tuesday morning, Ethan brewed a fresh pot of coffee, printed out a new lesson plan, and headed to the community college library. His students were a mix of eager undergrads and older adults retraining for second careers. Some came with idealism. Others carried disappointment. Ethan knew both languages fluently. One day, after a lecture on ethical failure points in system architecture, a student lingered. She was in her 30s, a single mother working nights, trying to earn a cybersecurity certification. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course," Ethan replied. "When did you know it was worth it?" "Standing up. Losing everything." He paused, the question pressing gently against his chest. "I didn't," he said. "Not at first. I only knew it was worse to stay quiet." She nodded slowly, her eyes misting. "That helps. A lot." Ethan walked her to the parking lot. The sun was dipping below the trees, and for the first time in a long while, he noticed how warm it felt on his face. Back home, the photo of his daughter still sat framed on the mantel. She had texted him that morning, "Just read another piece about your story. Proud of you, Dad. I told my team about what you did." He had replied with just one word, "Thanks." No headlines. No applause. But in a world full of noise, the truth had found its voice. And sometimes, that was enough. In a world where silence is often mistaken for weakness, Ethan reminded us that quiet doesn't mean powerless. He didn't seek revenge with fire. He used clarity, precision, and truth. This story isn't just about a man fired for being too old. It's about what we choose to do when we're erased, and whether we let that define us, or redefine the world around us. Ethan's journey is a call to anyone who's been overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated. Because the systems we build may one day become the very keys to our freedom. Now it's your turn. What did this story mean to you? Do you believe Ethan did the right thing? How did you feel about the way he handled the betrayal? And what would you have done in his place? Type 2 in the comments if this story inspired you. Or 7 if it didn't quite connect. Either way, we want to hear your voice. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like and subscribe to EN True Tales, where I, Natalie, bring you new stories every day about courage, betrayal, and redemption in the workplace and beyond. Your voice helps these stories reach the people who need them most. And sometimes, hearing the right story at the right time? It changes everything.